Welcome to More Than Miles, the podcast created to look deep into what it means to be a runner and endurance athlete. Our episodes are filled with real stories from real runners, elite to the everyday athlete. We bring together healthcare providers, athletes, and dive deep into topics that matter most to runners. I'm Dr. Kate Mihevik-Edwards, physical therapist, author, athlete, and complete coffee addict.
And I'm Dr. Kacy Sinders, physical therapist, athlete, and pun expert extraordinaire. We're so passionate about changing running culture to improve the health, wellness, and fulfillment of our endurance athlete community. And we hope that these conversations inspire you to focus on putting your health first so that performance and PRs can follow. Now let's get to the show.
Hey guys, welcome to More Than Miles. Kate and Kacy here, riffing on a little bit of a random episode here for you. But first things first, Kate, how are you doing?
I'm good, Kacy. How are you doing? How's your body feeling?
My body is feeling better. My quads no longer feel like pulled pork. The sunburn is fading. The heat blister on my lip is finally healing. I have no more rashes. Boston really put it to me. So I'm feeling significantly better than I was a week ago. We'll say that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
So we were talking about this episode and, thinking about all of our listeners out there, and we've kind of been absent for several months, I would say.
I mean, who's counting? But
who's counting? We won't count the months. But there are a lot of reasons for that. And so we thought we would spend today kind of reintroducing like what we're doing here and talking about a few different topics that have kind of come across in our clinical treatment with our elite athletes as well as our everyday athletes. And then also kind of let you guys know what we've been up to and why we've been so absent recently. And I think Kacy made a good point of mentioning the Boston Marathon. That's one of the reasons she and I haven't been as diligent about the podcast, is because she's actually been training for marathons during this time.
So yeah, we both have had our own marathons in terms of work this past spring. I trained for Boston this year, which is one of both of our favorite races, I know. And so I go every year I can. This is my sixth one. And I really love the challenge of the course and the specific training for it. And classic marathoner nature, I get really, really into it and tunnel visioned and really dedicated to it, which is great. I think it's a positive attribute, but it does make it hard to juggle a bunch of things. And so, yes, the podcast was one of the things that was not top of the list at the moment. But yeah, many of our listeners probably followed the Boston Marathon. It was quite warm out there. I know, temperature range from 60 to 70 degrees doesn't sound like a ton. It just felt hot out there. I don't really know how to describe it. It was just tough conditions for one reason or another. So I did not end up having the race I wanted to have, but I have learned a lot. Maybe we can share on the podcast what I have learned from Boston this year, but I am really proud of myself for finishing on a tough day.
Yeah, I think that every single marathon is something that you can learn from. Now, I don't think every runner needs to run a marathon. I think that's very true. Right. But then there are many of us that do need to run them or love to run them. And every marathon I ran was different. Every single one, no matter how I trained, it all ended up differently. And one of the pieces of advice I told you, and we've talked about, for years, is this idea of you really have to respect the distance when it comes to a marathon. And it's one of those things as marathon runners that you can train for 6 months, 8 months, 3 months, whatever your training cycle looks like. But you can't predict what the day is going to be like out there. And there's so many things that are outside of your control, and you still have to, go out there and perform. And some days are better than others.
Yep, that's right. I had probably 3 of my best workouts ever during this training cycle. I did so many split squats and quad things so that I would be ready for the hills. I ran so many hills in practice, and my legs were already shot at 14. And I was like, what the F? I was so mad, right? And I think a lot of people can relate to that. But that's the thing. There's so many variables, things that are out of your control, or things maybe you didn't expect that come up during the race.
Well, and I think that part of training for, and you know how I always feel about this, but training for life and training for marathons or any kind of race is you can't just train your body. Like you you can't just do the squats and you can't just do the strength and just pay attention to your nutrition intake and what you're going to run that day. But you also have to pay attention to your mental fitness, and you have to talk about like what you're doing to downregulate your nervous system and visualize and prepare for what is going to come or what isn't. And you can do all of those kind of things in addition to the physical stuff. Then you can come out of the race in a much better position, I think. And I think you came out really well this time. Yeah, you were frustrated, but I do think that you did a better job of coming out on the other side and looking at it with objective eyes and saying, okay, I did the best that I could. And I trained as, the best that I could. And this was the day that was given to me.
Yeah, better being the key and operative word here. Still not great, but we are working on it. But yeah, a lot of my goals were process oriented for Boston, which I think helped too. So the time wasn't as much of a shock to me as it would have been if that was my main goal. And it was a day where the process and was all really that mattered, or all that was left, because there were so many other variables. So
I'd like to make one other comment and then we'll move on from the Boston Marathon.
Okay.
Other comment is, it sounds like she ran slow, but I want everyone to know that she did not run slow. She still ran like what was it, 3:14 what?
3:14 low, yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to point that out there. And maybe it wasn't the time you were looking for, but you are not a slow marathoner.
I recognize that, yes. And thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I would like to have a 3:14. If I was ever allowed to run a marathon again, that would be my goal. No, it'd probably be 3:20.
Hey, I mean, 3:20 was my goal for a long time, and it's fast. I mean,
it is fast.
It's really fast.
It is fast. I know. I think I ran a 3:36 that was my lowest. So you're speedy, girl. Speedy, speedy. Speedy Gonzalez. Now you know how old I am.
Yeah, because I didn't before. So let's talk about your marathon. So you've been working really, really hard trying to get the Fast Bananas app out, which we know that Fast Bananas has been something of a sponsor of the podcast. If you listen to us for a while, we've had a nice little blurb about it at the end of our podcasts. So it's been around for a while, but the big difference here is that now this is going to be in your pocket. So on your phone, you'll have all this access to a lot of great information. So give us an update how your marathon is going.
Ooh, it's rough. So, that idea about when you take on a project, you don't really know how much work goes into it. And so sometimes it's nice to be naive when you jump into a big project, because otherwise you never would have done it in the first place. I can tell you that this is one of those projects. I'm really excited that Fast Bananas app is actually going to be called Run Source. One of the things I worked on actually was trademarking the name, which is crazy, and it took forever, and it's a lot of work, and it's very hard to do. And then we've been really working on, I keep saying around 40 experts. We might actually have almost 60 experts at this point. They're just not all on the app yet, and they haven't all created content, but they've already signed everything, and we have a plan, and they might be filming from the United States, Canada, and now Great Britain as well, which is really cool. And the content that we were originally creating, but we got smarter and better, as you always do in these projects. And our videos are, shorter than they originally were because of attention spans. And then we not only have all the information from, our sports dietitians, our sports psychologists, yoga instructors, PTs, MDs, we also have programs too. So like you can enter the app once it's out. You can enter it in two ways. Like one, just come in and say, hey, I'm a runner and I want to, be able to kind of look around in the app and pick, things about sports nutrition, or take a yoga class built for runners or whatever. Or the other way that you can enter the app is by picking a goal and saying, I want to dial in my recovery. And then you say, I know nothing about it, or I know a lot about it. I just need accountability, whatever it is. And then you'll get a program. And during that program, you'll get educational content, as well as exercises, as well as return to run programs, if it's, an injury program or a return to running postpartum program. So all that to be said is I have written every single program and put together all the educational content from all the experts and decided, what week do we need this kind of content? And I have been in spreadsheet, you know what, HE double hockey sticks. And I mean, there are AI things that could help with this, but we're so far along in the process because it's really been a 2-year process that I didn't want to change it again. And if you put your information into like a chat GPT or something, then they have all of your information and it goes right back into the system. And, you know, obviously AI is not my number one. I don't know everything about it, but this first version of the RunSource app is not going to use AI, but probably in version 2 or 3. But anyway, so yes, I have literally been seeing glute exercises, self-mobilization, meditations, yoga, strength training, like bios from all these experts, everything you could possibly think of. Like I've been in it, in addition to our everyday of treating athletes and running precision. And I'm actually also working on a TED Talk.
Oh, casual. So yeah, been a busy gal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all really exciting stuff. I've made a few videos for the app and RunSource before the app. I'm not super proficient with videos because they're like, hey, you've cut off your feet and this is a running drill. So you need to be able to see your feet. I was like, oh,
So
right, my bad.
we need to refilm that. Yeah.
We refilmed that one. So yeah, it's just, it just goes to show how much work and detail has gone into it and how intentional you've been about every piece of it, which I think is really, really exciting. And I can't wait for people to have their hands on it so that they can see for themselves.
Thank you. I mean, me too. And I actually rented myself a hotel room next Wednesday through Sunday in like 30 minutes away from my house. And I'm going there and I'm going all alone and I'm finishing the app. And then the week after, I think our Atlanta Track Club elites will get the app and give us feedback. And then hopefully a week or 2 after that, it'll be out. So it's going to be out in May, as far as I know, unless who knows? I mean, something's always happening, right? With developers and all this other stuff. But
Right.
I'm thinking by the end of May, it should definitely be out. We actually have, I have a couple people using it right now, like the content and the flows for some of the programs, testing it out, letting me know what they think, you know, if there's other things that could be added or whatever, which is really cool to have that. So yeah, I think it's good because it's like everything I've ever wanted every runner to know from me and from every expert I send them to, all in one place.
And that, I know that was the dream when it all started. We're so close.
So close.
But please tell me that hotel room is in Atlanta and not south of where you live.
It's not south of where I live. Actually, I don't know what direction it is because I'm directionally challenged. But it's in a really nice place.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah, well, it's a nice place, so don't worry.
If you need a delivery or something, let me know.
Thank you. No, it should be really interesting. I said to my husband, my son said, Dad, Mom's out. And then he said, are you coming back? And I said, it depends on how good the food is. But then I also realized I'm teaching that running course to all those people. So I teach a running course that you help me with a lot of times. I'm actually supposed to teach it that Wednesday. So I'm already have the hotel room. So I'm going to be teaching it from my hotel room, but I didn't realize it was the same week.
Well, there goes a few hours anyway.
There goes a few hours, but it's still about running. Maybe it'll make me think of something else. I don't know.
Yeah, help you shift gears and come back anew
right.
to the content. But
you would be surprised at how many people cut their feet or their head off, how many experts. I just want to make another comment and then I'm done with this. I'm sorry. You guys, I hope you're still listening. Who knows if you are. Maybe it's just Kacy and I talking to the abyss. But experts are experts in what they do. And that's why we love them, right? So I have all these incredible experts. I mean, really incredible experts. But what they're not experts in a lot of time are filming or like those kind of things. So I had several people cut their head off or their feet off or whatever. And I hated having or asking them to redo the videos, but I did because you can't have that on the app. But I think the most challenging piece of developing this has been getting experts on board and getting their content, even if they've committed and they're excited about it. It can be overwhelming to shoot videos. And I understand that. And if you're not used to it, it feels more overwhelming. So even though they know what they're doing, they're experts, I think the process of doing it has been really, really hard as well, which I didn't actually think about or anticipate. But that's what slowed it down, is I've had to wait on all of my experts bringing in things and then finding the right experts too.
Yeah. A few closing thoughts before we transition to the riffing part of the podcast. If only everyone could just see my little hand gesture I did there. So first being, I realize this all the time, even if I just do like a Zoom lecture or something, I'm like, how do I share my screen? Who's raising a hand? Like all the stuff that we just don't deal with as PTs, because all of our interactions are in person. And for the most part, we have those hands-on skills and not so much of the technology piece because we haven't quite needed them. So I feel the pain with that one. A second is, you mentioned AI with the app earlier, and Marathon Photos AI of face recognition is scary. Okay, there is a photo in my group of photos from Boston that is literally a sliver of my face.
Wow.
And you can maybe see like my sunglasses that I'm wearing, and it's this woman's hair. Like it's just her hair. It's like a huge wig in front of this photo. And they caught it that it's like that little sliver was me. So it is crazy. I'm like, why are these bibs so big with the numbers? We don't need the bib numbers anymore because they were just picking everything up.
Wow. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah, there's so much going on with AI and it's changed so fast. And I've had a lot of conversations about it. And I went to this great conference with a bunch of entrepreneurs last fall, and we spent quite a bit of time talking about AI. And I do think that we're all going to be using it in one way or another. And I know that my app will be, using it more as we go. But it's a big thing that is really, really exciting, but maybe a little bit scary depending on who you are.
Yeah. I think we'll transition into talking about some of the things we started to talk about off air, and we were like, wait, we should be recording this because this is good stuff. So I think the first thing we were talking about, it's like, okay, we were trying to brainstorm and we were thinking, what are our patients struggling with, or have we noticed any themes that maybe we could share with you guys, our listeners? And Kate, you first mentioned the Atlanta Track Club elites transitioning into different track lengths between indoor and outdoor, and they're changing out shoes and things like that. So do you want to speak to a little bit of what you've noticed there?
Yeah, so it was really interesting is this year, I do have to say that our coach has done a great job, like the track club coach has done a really great job at transitioning the athletes from, trainers to spikes. And I know that a lot of people listening to this podcast probably don't wear spikes on a regular basis. So don't worry, we're not going to go down this huge tunnel of spikes.
Runners are nerds. I feel like they would still be.
That's right. But the transition to spikes takes a bit because it changes the way your foot hits the ground. It changes what muscles you're using. It changes your stability. And when you're training at such a high level, everything matters, every little thing. And I mean, I think that most things matter for everybody, especially if they're doing, intense workouts or high mileage. But when you're kind of riding that line between what is healthy and what is unhealthy for your body all of the time, which is what every elite does since the beginning of time, these small changes make a difference. And so I noticed that a lot of issues we were having were with the lower leg and the foot and ankle, which you would expect when you transition into spikes. And it got me thinking about just the conversations that I have with all my other patients about like, hey, if you're going to make a change with your shoes, it doesn't matter what shoes they are, let's do it slowly so that your body can accommodate. And then also, let's make sure that you have the strength available and the mobility available in your foot and ankle complex, in your lower leg to support the shoes that you want to be transitioning into. So we made some changes in their strength program, and we added some balance work and some, more foot and ankle specific work and things for the Achilles tendon, just to kind of help clean up some of the aches and pains that the elites were having. And I just thought it was really interesting and one of those nerdy moments that I was having as I was treating everyone.
Yeah, so this kind of reminds me of the barefoot talk, right? So talking about, I think the official word is shod running versus non-shod running.
Yes, it is.
Things have changed a lot around there. I don't want to necessarily go down that rabbit hole, but what we found out through a lot of the research around actually answering this question of what type of drop is ideal in running and what does this do to injury risk, right? And I think the biggest thing to come out of that is predictably, or maybe not so predictably, is that the lower profile shoes loads up more of the foot and ankle, whereas the higher profile shoes load more of knee and hip, or kind of above foot and ankle. So is something of a trade-off rather than reducing overall stress on the body. But that's kind of parallels what we're talking about with spikes, and why like adding in the Achilles stuff and the balance stuff and the foot strength things are helpful for transitioning into spikes. So I'm sure we have maybe some high school athletes listening who are running in spike, or college athletes listening who are running in spikes. But making sure that your foot and ankle can handle that increased load of the lower profile shoe.
Absolutely. And that's why one of the things I say in many of my lectures is that running shoes have been changing for 40 years, but the rate of injury has not been changing. And the rate of injury is not changing because it's not really, I mean, there are aspects that have to do with the shoe. Like I just had another client today that, she was having foot pain. It's always the foot, having foot pain several weeks ago. And I said, look, I honestly think it's the shoes. And rarely am I going to blame a shoe, but I said, honestly, I think we need to get you into a different shoe. And, I had Big Peach mobile truck coming down to Serenbe, which was awesome. So I sent her over to see Sean and we got her into a different shoe. I showed her how to tie it differently. And with that in combination with some of the hands-on manual stuff I was doing and the strength that we were doing, her foot pain was gone. And she'd been having it for months and months and months. It was gone in 2 or 3 weeks. It was like literally a huge difference. And so I do think that those small pieces and details can have a huge impact when it comes to treating these athletes.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely always worth looking at your shoes in a critical lens, but I hope that no one heard, okay, if I buy new shoes, my pain will go away. Please see a healthcare practitioner.
Oh yeah. Okay. So let me clear that up, right? Because that's right. I basically said she bought new shoes, but I did also say we did manual therapy and exercise and mobility work in addition to the shoes. The shoes were just part of it. And it also doesn't mean that you can blame all of your injuries on your shoes, because that's not true either. The research says, and we've said this multiple times, that the most important thing when it comes to a shoe is comfortable. It's not actually the level of support or the height or any of those things that makes a shoe good for you. It's how comfortable it is when you're wearing it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's, I know, the big thing that we all preach at Precision in terms of trying out different shoes, finding what works for you, finding what feels best on your foot. I do often see, or not often, but every once in a while, I do see this kind of the opposite problem where people will be, obviously stability, the category of stability shoes has changed, but they'll have some sort of supportive shoe and then plus like an insert for their high arches or something, just because they've always I've been wearing these inserts since high school. I'm not going to change it now. And then they end up over correcting for it and they lose their pronation, which we want some of to help absorb force. And that can load up the lateral chain, the outside part of the knee, and can cause problems with that force dissipation. So there are little nuances in here that I would definitely recommend people see someone to talk about versus Dr. Google and Googling rabbit holes, which I also see quite often.
And you brought up pronation, which is, I always like to say pronation is not a dirty word.
It's not a swear word. I saw this on the list of videos that you wanted me to make for the app, which I immediately was like, yes, I was stoked. I'm like, I'm going to do that one.
Oh, good. I'm so glad, because I was going to do it because I always like to say pronation is not a dirty word. I love it. We won't do that voice, but I'm glad you're going to do it because I don't want the app to have so many videos of me. And you're going to be so good at it. I gave you all the foot ones because of your love for the foot.
I do love the foot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's quite lovely.
It is. It's, you know what? It's just as complicated, maybe not more so, but it's just as complicated as the hand, but I will not try to treat anything in the hand.
So one of the things that happens to me in Serenbe versus Atlanta is, so I live here and I have a clinic here, and we drive the golf cart around a lot. And then we also have all these leagues. So we have like soccer and softball and kickball and like all pickleball and tennis, and everybody is in like a league. And, it's all a bunch of like 30 and 40-year-old people playing. And so people get hurt all of the time. And they either flag me down on the golf cart, Dr. Kate, or I get called to the field, or I'll get called after the game. And sometimes I make house calls, which is really funny. It's like old school here. And I kind of love it,
Call the medic, the neighborhood medic.
Call Dr. Kate. So, I show up. But recently someone called me about their hand and I was like, oh, nope. I don't think so. I said, I'm really sorry. I said, I can look at it to tell you if something is broken, but I am not a hand person and I'm not good at it. Like, I'm definitely not good at treating the hand. So once I determine if it's broken or not, if something else is happening, I think I will send you on.
That's the thing. The complication of the foot doesn't bother me, but probably because there's, it's so heavily tied to running, right?
Because it has to do with running, and that's what
to do with running. Yeah, that's why I like it.
Anything has to do with running. I mean, you could say the hands have to do with running, because we have to hold things as part of the arm swing if we really wanted to, but
that's true.
We don't have to go down that. Maybe we can do better.
Speaking of the hands, I had a patient on the treadmill. We were doing a gait analysis, and he was just like talking. He was like talking as like I was letting him warm up. I wasn't videoing yet, but he was warming up, and he was like telling me about the things he was thinking about, what he had read. He's like, I've heard of the potato chip thing.
Yeah.
I was like, the what?
You don't know the potato chip?
I had no idea. I'd never heard this in my life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
you've heard of the potato chip thing?
I know all about the potato chip. Holding the potato chip.
Oh my gosh.
I would like to know how many of our users know about the potato chip.
Yeah. Okay.
But go on, please keep going.
Okay, I'm gonna post a story on Precision this afternoon, a poll saying, have you heard of the running cue involving a potato chip, and see what we get.
That's a good thing, because I wonder, I totally know that.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're confused, I love you because you are making me not feel dumb.
You're not dumb.
So the potato chip thing is to facilitate relaxing your hands. You were supposed to pretend that you're holding a potato chip in your hands as you swing them, to decrease tension, I guess, in your hands.
You don't want to crack your potato chip, and then lose it on the ground and you can't eat it.
And then no snack for you. Yeah.
No snack.
Anyway, that was a really fun tangent.
We're
gonna find out. We're gonna find out how many people know
about the potato chip cue. Yeah, I heard about that a long time ago. I don't think people use it as much anymore. So I thought that was something but a lot of running coaches talk about holding a potato chip onto like a can. They used to say can of soda, or probably Coke in Atlanta, probably kind of Coke, but holding on to something to relax your hands so that you're not tightening and making your upper trap and your shoulder kind of go up towards your ears. So that's why.
Yeah. So I don't know, guys, try it out. See if you like it.
You could use you should bring real potato chips, because then when you do get hungry, you could eat them.
You have a little snack. Yeah. Got your sodium,
on the go.
Got some simple starchy carbs. It's basically UCAN super starch, but in potato chip form.
Gross. Okay. So luckily, it's actually really fun. Maybe we should do all of our podcasts like this. And then
I'm enjoying this quite a bit.
Me too, but I bet our guest would be like, wait, where's your topic? Anyway, I wanted to talk about the other thing that you brought up earlier, which was hip hinging, because it's another thing that comes up with our patients a lot, especially people who either have never strength trained before or people who have done a lot of strength training and are runners. You had mentioned that one of your athletes asked you why you were teaching hip hinging when there was, quote, no hip hinging in running.
Right. Yes. So he was getting very in the weeds. He was trying to understand how to use his glutes with running, which I really appreciate his effort and attention to. So I'm not making fun of him at all. But
no, I think it was a really good question.
It's a good question. And so it did. It made me think a lot. And actually, a lot of the questions that this particular patient asks has helped me a lot as a practitioner, and not necessarily learned anything new, but finding new ways to package things and really be like, okay, why do I make this recommendation? Right. And so we always need those people in our lives. So yes, the question was, so he's trying to learn how to use his glutes for forward propulsion versus calves primarily, and trying to less quad dominant with running. And so I was giving him a lot of hip hinging exercises. So things like lunge patterns, squat patterns, hip thrust patterns, which, yes, are all more of an exaggerated hip hinge than what occurs with running. But if we think about, so our glutes are supposed to fire at two different phases of the gait cycle. So one is that transition from kind of foot flat to mid stance. So when we're pulling ourselves over the foot, and then again at the last piece of running form where we are pushing off the ground, we want both our calf and glute to be kind of firing at the same time there. So it's sort of two different mechanisms of the glute working. So what we find a lot is that our runners are very quad dominant. So that first phase is a lot of braking force through the quads, and not so much being able to use the glute to do that first motion of getting that foot underneath us so that we can start to really push off of the ground. So the answer that I provided to this patient was that if we think about our hinge, the way the glute has to work within the hinge pattern is very similar. It is something of a hip hinge in that we're transitioning from hip flexion to hip extension. So basically, we're working on using the glutes to control that transition from flexion to extension, which is what we want with running. And then also just in general, Kate, as we were discussing this, you brought up the point of the posterior chain strength in general. So doing a lot of squatting patterns, hinging patterns, things that are going to strengthen the back of our body can help us be less quad dominant, which overall will transition to better glute activation with running, which is what us PTs are screaming about all the time.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. Like I use a lot of hip hinging as well. And my favorite exercise in the entire world is a hip thrust. Oh, yeah. I think I might mention it every podcast, and I might continue to do so. But it's one of my favorite exercises, especially for that idea of hip extension in running. But I do like that point. There is this transition between flexion and extension that occurs during running. And we have to train even those transitions. Like breakdown happens in transitions. One thing in PT school, they always said is that injuries occur at transition points in tendons and in different parts of the body, in different parts of the spine. Well, it's the same thing when you think of movement patterns. Injuries and dysfunctions can occur in those transition points. And so by training through that transition, you're going to be stronger and more resilient when it comes to running. And then also, like you just mentioned, training that posterior chain, you just have to do it. Like posterior chain strength, and so not just glutes, but just in general, posterior chain is going to help with posture. It's going to help with how you're landing. It's going to help with propulsion and stability. And so even if you're not thinking of it as specifically as that transition from flexion to extension, you're still, training that hip hinge and doing those movements to help with the posterior chain and being able to really create that stability around the run gait. So I think it was a really thoughtful question by your patient, and it really helped us to kind of talk it out and see like, okay, is this something that we really want to be doing? And obviously it is.
And one of our other favorite exercises for this are the extension rolling patterns, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this one looks a little bit more of like, I think what people are thinking about when they think about hip extension, right? Because we actually don't go into hip flexion at all with that movement. It's purely a hip extension moment, flipping yourself from your stomach to your back. So this isn't probably going to make a bunch of sense to our listeners who don't know this particular exercise, but that one is more what we would call like neuromuscular, right? So trying to teach the brain sequencing of muscle firing and trying to feel what that feels like, make that like kind of brain muscle connection. Whereas a lot of these hinging exercises still uses similar muscle groups, similar muscle fibers, but we can actually load them there. And that's where we can actually get the strength building that we want. And that translates into more resilient tissues to be able to handle the load of running.
On that note, for the rolling pattern, that prone rolling pattern, which I really love as well. Like I think of it as a light switch, hey, we're going to turn this pattern on in your brain. And so I like it. A lot of people are using it now in dynamic warm-up routines. They're doing,
nice.
Yeah, I think it's actually really cool. And it would be one of my favorites in a dynamic warm-up routine is they're doing that pattern, partial pattern where they're laying on their stomach and they're extending their hip and tapping it to the other side and coming back. I saw that recently and I'm like, yes.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I mean, people always watch me do that exercise like, Dr. Kacy, what are you doing? But most of our athletes are like, I don't care how silly I look. Tell me what I need to do. I'm going to do it.
That's right. And that's the point, right? Is who cares how silly it looks if it helps you keep running?
Yeah. This reminds me of that reel on Instagram that I sent you a while ago that was like me and my friends doing our dynamic warm up in a parking lot at 5 a.m. And it was just like people like kind of like vibing or whatever to some sort of techno music.
Oh yeah, that's really funny. Oh no, I know. That's it. I was actually, it was funny. I was talking to someone, another patient this morning, because I saw somebody this morning, and she just got back from a work trip, and she works with a lot of younger people, and they're out, going out to drinks and all this stuff because she's in tech and everything at night. And I'm like, it's the coolest thing when I go on work trips, we all go to bed at like 9 o'clock because everyone is getting up to go running or something along the sorts, or training for something, or they just don't want to be up late because they've got to work. So I said, oh, our worlds are so very different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I know it's changed a lot, but I feel like I've seen something that was kind of like a meme or kind of a parody about PTs. It's like, how do you know someone's a PT? And it's like, well, buy the khakis and polo.
Not anymore. We don't really wear
Not
khakis.
anymore, no. But you'll still see it. Like I mean, I haven't been to CSM in a long time, but you will still see some stereotypical PT costumes.
PT costumes, yes, you will. No, now we get to wear. So I just changed the policy in the clinic where we're allowed to wear, cool
Never thought I'd see the day, folks. Really never thought I'd see the day.
I'm up for change. I'm cool with change, but yeah, I mean, we're a running clinic. We might as well be able to wear running shoes.
Yeah, she's not a regular boss. She's a cool boss.
Hey, thanks. Oh, all right. Was there anything else we wanted to fill in our listeners with on this episode back? I think actually last time when we talked to EG, we're like, we're back. Just kidding. But this time we really are.
Yeah, this time we're really back. We've got some things lined up for you guys we're really excited about. It's going to be good. Hold on to your hats.
We've got some great ideas and some good guests coming up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and thanks for listening to us riff for 30 or 40 minutes today. We're glad to be back, and we hope that you enjoyed this and learned a little something. And we definitely want to know if you know anything about the potato chip in running or not.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for listening today. We are so happy that you're here. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with a friend. Even better, share it on social media, because sharing is caring. And the more people we can reach, the better.
Another way you can help us out is by leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcast. So give us those 5 stars and tell us how awesome we are. Really, we love to hear how awesome we are. To support our work financially, you can also join our Patreon squad at patreon.com/morethanmiles, where for a few dollars a month, you can help us keep the show going and growing. This season is sponsored by Fast Bananas. Why buy multiple subscriptions made for everyone when you can have one specifically crafted for runners? Fast Bananas has online yoga classes, strength training programs, meditations, recipes, communities to ask questions, and so much more. Check out Fast Bananas at fastbananas.com or follow them on Instagram at fastbananasrun. Don't forget that training is so much more than miles.